Well, good morning. My name is Isaac. I'm the lead pastor here at the Intersection Church. I'm so glad you guys are all here today. It's a good day. This coming Saturday, just 6 days from now, we are having a church work day. It's a lot of work and maintenance to keep this building up and the facility. So at 10 a.m., we're going from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., just a couple hours. If you can join us, bring gloves, rakes, those kind of things. We really would be helpful. We will provide the delicious coffee. But if you can be here this Saturday, that'd be very helpful to us. The college that I attended, it was a very small, it wasn't your typical college. It was very small, about 100 students. It was in Eugene, Oregon. We had curfew and dress codes. You guys think of college, you think dress code and curfew. Well, that's the kind of school I attended. So just this really unique place. I was often at our professors' homes. I just go over there and spend time. There was one professor who I would just show up at his door, and every time I did, he made me brownies. I love that man. It was just a different place and culture. Well, one finals week, it was right before summer. Everybody's dying to get out of town. The students have checked out long ago. It's middle of the morning. I'm in my dorm room. I share that dorm room with 3 other guys. It's mid-morning. I'm getting ready for the day. 10:30. The sun, I can still see it. The sun is shining. And all of a sudden, the door flies open, and this professor comes barreling through the dorm room. And he just was one of those guys that takes up a lot of space. He's loud and bombastic, a good man, but when he walks into a room, you go, whoa, he's here. So he bursts in, and what he was doing, he was going through the dorm rooms, waking guys up that needed to turn in their papers to him. This is, like I said, it's a different place. Can you imagine that taking place? So he comes in and he's saying, are you still sleeping? Wake up, get your paper turned in. Let's go. Come on, get up. Fortunately, I didn't have him that semester. I was fine. But I just thought it was unique that he's just going through, waking guys up. It was a little shocking to have a professor in the dorms telling people to turn in their papers. We're in a series this morning called Questions Around Easter. And Jesus' question that he poses to his disciples is the same question that professor said that morning, where he said, "Are you still sleeping?" It's the same question. Can you imagine if Jesus asked you that question? That would be dramatically different than a professor. That would be worse than being woken up by that. If you're sleeping in your own bed and Jesus woke up and said, "Are you still sleeping?" That would make me nervous. This actually happened to the disciples 3 times. In 1 hour, Jesus had to wake them up and was saying, "Are you still sleeping?" Our passage this morning is in Mark 14:32. But let me catch you up on where we're at, because we're just jumping right in the middle of a story here. So this is the last full day of Jesus' life. He and his disciples had just celebrated the Passover meal. They ate a big dinner. Lamb, bread, wine. They'd been traveling. It's late at night. There's a lot going on. The disciples have no idea that Jesus is hours away from being arrested, and in less than 24 hours, he would be dead. Their world would be sent into chaos. They have no idea what's going on. So that's where we're jumping into here. This is Mark 14:32 through 42. "And they went to a place called Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples, 'Sit here while I pray.' And he took with him Peter and James and John and began to be greatly distressed and troubled. And he said to them, 'My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch.' And going a little farther, he fell on the ground and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And he said, 'Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I will, but what you will.' And he came and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, 'Simon, are you asleep? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak.' And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to answer him. And he came the 3rd time and said to them, 'Are you still sleeping and taking your rest? It is enough, the hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hand of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand.'" So after the Passover meal, they eat together, they celebrate, and Jesus leads his disciples across the Kidron Valley to the garden called Gethsemane. This is a location that he must have visited often with his disciples, either to pray or to camp out and stay when they traveled to Jerusalem. Remember, last week I mentioned that Jerusalem was a town or a city of about 30,000 people, but during Passover week it could swell to about 2 million people. So there's just not place for people to stay, so they would have camped around the edges of Jerusalem, and perhaps the garden was where Jesus and his disciples would often stay. We don't know, but we do know that it was a place that they knew where to go, because later on here at the end of this passage we read, Judas Iscariot knew that this was where Jesus was going to be. He knew this is their location, and so there was some level of familiarity here. So when Judas shows up, he brings the soldiers to arrest Jesus to this very place. The Garden of Gethsemane still exists today, filled with beautiful olive trees. Some of those olive trees are over 2,000 years old, which means they were there in the garden when Jesus was there, which I find fascinating. So Jesus they go to the garden. He tells his 11 disciples, hey, just sit tight. I'm going to go over here and pray, and he has them just sit down. But then he invites Peter and James and John to come a little further with him. And the reason he took these 3 disciples is really important to our story this morning. The first reason he does this is that he does seem to be a little closer to these disciples. Several times he invites Peter, James, and John to have a deeper access of relationship with him. He invites them to the time when he was transfigured on a mountain. So he goes to a mountaintop. His appearance is changed. Moses and Elijah show up, and there with them were Peter, James, and John. And so there was this sense that Jesus brought these 3 to different levels of relationship than the others. There were miracles that would take place where Jesus would bring them along as well, and they would just get access to the homes when Jesus would heal people. So it just does seem like he's closer to them. It seems that he has close friends. So he wants them with him. He is in the last hours of his life. He's about to experience the most painful, traumatic, agonizing event in human history. And when Jesus was in anguish, he wanted his friends with him. And I believe this is so relatable. When we experience difficulties, having a friend there just makes such a difference. It means so much to us. Knowing that there is someone nearby who cares about me, loves me, roots for me, it matters. And Jesus is the same way. When he's going through this turmoil, he wants his closest friends nearby. We all need friends around us. In moments of crisis and in moments of celebration, we want people there that we can call and say, hey, this happened, let's celebrate, let's rejoice. Or this happened, will you pray with me? We need these close friends. And I know people who say they don't have friends or don't have close friends. Making friends is really, really hard. It takes incredible risk. The amount of people that I've called or attempted to be friends with that just didn't work out, it's just an uncountable amount of people. Just, people are busy. It's not a personal thing when people just say, I can't. A lot of people have other things going on. They just don't have the capacity to take on another friend. And so those of us that don't have friends, you keep calling, keep trying to make friends, because it really is essential to our humanity to have people that we can call to in times of crisis. It just requires a lot of risk. It requires a lot of work. So if that's you, if you're saying, yeah, I need friends, keep trying. Don't give up on that. Keep asking the Lord to help you find another person. It gives me great solace to know that even Jesus needed friends. The other reason, though, that he invites these 3 people is important for our morning together. These 3 all claimed that they were capable of following Jesus at a deeper level than the others would. They claimed that they would stick with Jesus when everyone else would fall away. They thought they were special and important. James and John, they were brothers. On their way to Jerusalem to this event, they actually told Jesus that they thought they should sit at the right and left hand of him while he's sitting on the throne as king. And Jesus, he says, well, listen, I can't give that to you. That's not my place. But in order to have this kind of high level of relationship, it's going to cost you. There's a cost to this. Do you think you can handle it? And they said, oh yeah, no problem. We can do it. Here's the verse. This is Mark 10, 37 through 39. And James and John said to him, grant us to sit one at your right hand and one at your left in your glory. And Jesus said to them, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you able to drink the cup that I drink, or to be baptized with the baptism with which I am baptized?" And they said to him, "We are able." We are strong enough. We can do it. No problem. We are amazing. We can do this. And Peter said the same thing just a couple hours previous to their time in the Garden of Gethsemane. It's during their Passover. They're having a meal. And Jesus is trying to prepare the disciples for what's about to happen. They have no idea. And he's saying, listen, in just a little bit, you are all going to fall away. You're all going to reject me. You're all going to run. And Peter says, no way. If everyone else denies you, I'm not going anywhere. Here's what he says. Mark 14:27. And Jesus said to them, "You will all fall away, for it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I am raised up, I will go before you to Galilee." Remember that at the very end of this morning. Remember that line, "But I will go before you to Galilee." And Peter said to him, "Even though they all fall away, I will not." And Jesus said to him, "Truly I tell you, this very night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times. But he said emphatically, "If I must die with you, I will not deny you." And they all said the same. And Peter says, "If I must die with you, I will not deny you." And Jesus says, before the rooster crows, before the sun comes up, you're going to deny me 3 times. So Peter, James, and John, they are the most ardent supporters of Jesus. If you kill me, I'm still going to follow you, Jesus. That's what they believe. So in this hour, when Jesus is at his greatest need, his greatest time of hurt and anguish, and he needs his friends, he brings these 3 who say, no matter what, I'm there. They're his strongest advocates, his strongest followers and supporters. If any 3 can handle what Jesus is going to ask them to do, it's these 3. So we get to verse 33 in this passage, and it says, "And he took with him Peter, James, and John, and began to be greatly distressed and troubled. And he said to them, 'My soul is very sorrowful, even to death. Remain here and watch.'" So this passage that we're reading is primarily about Jesus. And I want to make sure that we know that this is about Jesus and what he's going through and how he's interacting with his Father in his prayer. This morning, though, I want us to look at the disciples and how they react to this. Jesus is greatly distressed. He's in deep anguish. He's about to die. He's going to carry the weight of the world on his shoulder. All of the pain of sin and death and shame is coming down on him in these dark moments, these last hours of his life. No person has ever nor will ever carry a burden like this in history or ever again. And Jesus calls his friends to action. He's in distress and he says, listen, watch and pray. Just wait up with me. Watch and pray with me. Now, the terms watch and pray, both of those are phrased in a way that means to keep on going. It's not just kind of a glance of, oh yeah, okay, or a quick prayer of, hey, Jesus, we need your help, thanks, and we just move on. It's not that. It's this continual looking, continual watching, continual praying. That's what's going on. And so Jesus is saying, keep doing this action. Now, Mark, when he's writing this again to a church, and he's saying the same things to the church. He's inviting the church, the readers of this, to the same activity, to watch and pray, to continue on in that. It's not just for the disciples in that moment, but it becomes our invitation as well. As followers of Jesus, we are constantly on the watch for his arrival. We continually look for his presence. We are invited to have God be a regular part of our hearts and minds. How are we doing at this? Are we constantly watching and praying? Are we looking for Jesus constantly? If you were like me, I would rather not think about it because I don't perform very well in that category of constantly watching and praying. I'm not very successful there. It's really only been in the last few years that I've really begun to understand the importance of the beauty and grace of having Jesus on my heart and mind. And so I'm trying to constantly encourage all of us to have that be Jesus at the front of our mind and constantly be on our hearts, because that's what he's asking us to do. And when we do that, we experience life. But when we notice that Jesus is saying watch and pray, and we're invited to that, and we look at how we're doing, there's a tension there of what the expectation is and how real life is. I'm not going to resolve that tension right now. That'll be at the very end as well, so pay attention to that. But just notice that this isn't working out very well. So Jesus goes a little further away. He leaves Peter, James, and John, walks away, and he begins to pray. He collapses to the ground, and he begins to ask God to remove the step that he's about to have to take. He's saying, God, if there's any other way, please remove this from me. But if it's your will, he'll go through it. After a period of time, Jesus, he gets up and he wants to see his friends, so he goes to his friends, and this is what's happened. This is our first point. They've fallen asleep. Verse 37, and he came and found them sleeping. And he said to Peter, Simon, are you asleep? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray that you may not enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. Jesus comes to his friends looking for help, looking for support, and he finds them completely sound asleep. Now, to be fair, again, the disciples, they've been partying, they've been celebrating, delicious dinner, good beverage, good friends, traveling, they're exhausted. They don't know, and they are just sound asleep when Jesus needs them. He calls out Peter. He says, he's the one that just a couple hours ago said that he would die. He's saying, Peter, you just said you would be willing to die. You can't even stay awake. Can you stay awake with me? And Jesus corrects the disciples. He says, are you asleep? Can you not watch 1 hour? And again, I think Mark is saying the same to the church. He's saying, are you asleep? Can you not watch? Can you not watch 1 hour? Is the church remaining, not the intersection, but just the global church, and then us as included in that, is the church alert and in prayer? Is the church keeping watch on the work of the Spirit, or have we just delighted ourselves in the comfort of our lives and we just embrace everything and we've now fallen asleep because we've had good meals, we've had air conditioning and heat, we have quick and easy convenience? Have we just allowed ourselves to enjoy the comforts of our world around us? And when the time comes, we've missed out on opportunities for these crucial moments. See, we never know when an opportunity will present itself that's a divine moment. We just don't know. We don't know when God is saying, I need you to be awake and be prepared. Whenever our kids need us, it seems to be the most inconvenient times. Have you noticed that? When we need to be at our best is when we are tired, we're distracted, we're hungry, we're irritable, and all of a sudden a child comes and he needs something from us in those moments. And we have to, if we're not watching, we can totally miss it. It's while we're at work making phone call after phone call after phone call that a coworker could come to us and say that their spouse has cancer and they're just really struggling. Or maybe we're trying to work on our own side by side at our desk and we're trying to work, and then another coworker says that they're exhausted because they're having to care for their mother who has dementia, and they're exhausted. And if we're not paying attention, if we're not alert, if we're not awake and in prayer, we just keep on going, oh yeah, I'm really sorry, that's too bad. Any plans this weekend? And we're missing the divine moment that God is placing right there for us. We are asleep and we're unaware. When we're not looking, when we're not watching or waiting, we miss moments and then we wish we had them back. We are created to be the image of God everywhere we go. Everywhere we go, we reflect Him. So we bring life and hope and joy every time we enter a room because we carry Him with us. And when we're asleep in those moments, we miss moments for God's kingdom to expand, to advance. We miss moments for God's love and mercy and grace and hope to enter that opportunity because we're just distracted, we're enjoying our comforts, we're asleep, we're unaware. And so Jesus gives the disciples a second chance. He says, okay, I'm going to be right back. I want you to watch and pray. And then he adds, so that you do not enter temptation. What Jesus is saying is be on the lookout. Be alert for things that will take us off course. The temptation is something that's going to just keep us distracted and take us away from what God is wanting. That word temptation can mean two different things here. It can mean being tempted to do something, so it's like a trial where we're tempted, or it can be a trial or a test. Both definitions work. So what Jesus says is to pray so that they can, if there's something arises, they can avoid the temptation. They can say no, they can resist. Or if it's a trial, they can pass the test. They're not going to run away for the sake of their own safety or loyalty, or They're going to prove that they are able to cope through the process. And so Jesus is saying, pray that you do not enter into temptation. He knows that the disciples are minutes away from a life-defining moment. He asks them to watch so that when the time appears, they are ready. And he says this in verse 38, the spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. And this leads us to the second point today. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Peter, James, and John truly, authentically, deeply wanted to be the ones who would stand beside Jesus no matter what. I know that at the core of who they are, they wanted to be the disciples that would be obedient. They would stand next to him and they wouldn't deny him and they'd go to the point of death on his behalf. But when the time arrived, despite their best intentions, hopes, and dreams, they were weak. They could not do what they wanted. Does anyone know that feeling? You have the best of intentions, but then when the moment comes, you fail miserably. I know I do. Jim Edwards, he's a noted scholar and a retired Whitworth professor, and I say this all the time. Whitworth professors in the theology department, they're terrific. They have the best commentaries, but that's a side note. He said this. He said that this comment by Jesus is a necessary reminder that trusting and obeying God are not default responses of disciples of Jesus, but ongoing struggles against temptations and weakness. So we're reminded that trusting and obeying God, it's just not naturally what we do. We just don't wake up naturally obeying God and doing what he says. What's natural to us is temptation, weakness, and giving into those. That's just how it works. These three literally followed Jesus. They walked with him everywhere. They did everywhere he went, they went. They watched him in the miracles. They helped do the miracles. They were with him everywhere he went. And when the time came for them to obey, their flesh was not strong enough to do what their spirit or their will desired. Boy, like I said, I know that pain. The amount of times where I want to love my family and put them first and listen to them and serve their needs, I desire that. And then there's a great game on, and I just would rather not get up. Or the amount of times where I really want to encourage and just help somebody else and just tell them how awesome they are. But then, actually I also want to be liked. And so I would, instead of encouraging, I'll just gossip and say, oh boy, did you see what that person did? Whew, not good. My intention is to do right, but then my flesh, I'm not strong enough to do it. Maybe for you, you want to be somebody who is generous and gives good gifts. You just want to love people by giving good things. And then you go to the store and you say, that would look awesome on me. I really could use that really nice toy. I've been wanting to get some jet skis and a nice boat for a while. I can afford it. And so you make decisions you want to give away, but then you also really want some nice toys. We all have a list of things that we know, every time I go out with my friends, I have more than I should. I'm just not going to. And we in the end, our desire does not match up with our flesh. We just give in over and over to our flesh. So what do? How do we get our flesh to align with our spirit? Is it possible? Is Jesus saying, your intentions, you're just doomed. You're never going to live up to it. I don't think Jesus leaves us with no hope. Instead, I think what Jesus is inviting us to is to begin to integrate, to put together what our desire is and how we actually live. I think Jesus is trying to get us to live how our will desires, to put our bodies and our spirits and our soul all align that together and have them directed towards Jesus. When we are living with purpose and intention through the Holy Spirit, we begin to find wholeness and healing. And I think this is what Jesus is hopefully pointing us to here. This is what the Apostle Paul says in 1 Corinthians 9:25. Every athlete exercises self-control in all things. They do it to receive a perishable wreath, but we an imperishable. So I do not run aimlessly, I do not box as one beating the air, but I discipline my body and keep it under control, lest after preaching to others, I myself should be disqualified. What Paul says here is that he lives in such a way, he trains his body very intentionally to align himself with the kind of person he wants to become. So he purposely lives in such a way that eventually his body will do what he desires, what his spirit desires. He trains. So by training, what Paul means are things like fasting. He studies Scripture. He attends church service and church gatherings. He worships. He prays. He has times of solitude and silence. He has friends. He celebrates. He exercises. All of these things train our bodies to respond in a way that eventually will help me do what I desire to do. He said he performs these on purpose so that he's able to stay alert. He's able to watch and pray without falling asleep, so that when the time is right, he is prepared to act. There's a great British author, his name's G.K. Chesterton. He said this, I think this is great. Christianity has not so much been tried and found wanting as it has been found difficult and left untried. What he says is, it's really hard to follow the words of Jesus, to train our bodies, to live in such a way, to actually live out what we desire. So because it's hard, we just go, I'd rather not. Training takes work. It takes effort. It takes a plan. And what we see in the disciples and what we see in the world around us is that no one accidentally stumbles into having an incredible, vibrant life with God. No one we know who loves God passionately, wholeheartedly, and is a joy to be around, goes around and say, I honestly have no idea how I got here. I was just walking around Fred Meyer, and look at me. I just love Jesus with my whole life. All of a sudden, it just doesn't work that way. What happens is these people intentionally live in such a way that they dedicate their life to being with Jesus, to being like Him. So they structure their life to make sure that they become the kind of person who is wise and joyful and full of love. They live in such a way intentionally so they can follow Jesus. These disciples, they're just young guys. They hadn't yet worked out the training to follow Jesus. They were still young men. They were still learning. Over the course of their life, over the next 30 years, they would learn to follow Jesus. See, we are embodied souls, which means we are body, we are soul. That's who we are. Our bodies and our souls, that they are equally important. Too often we neglect what we do with our bodies. Our bodies have significant role in the way we follow Jesus. It's actually what we do, right? So we want to align our bodies with our soul. We want to strengthen and integrate all of who we are. There's an author named Richard Foster. He says this: willpower will never succeed in dealing with deeply ingrained habits of sin. So we can desire something, but our habits, what we do with our bodies, will eventually determine who we are. I like how John Ortberg says it. He says habits eat willpower, or what your desires are. Habits eat willpower for breakfast. So what you do with your life, your habits will determine who you are. If we are able to strengthen our bodies and align it with our spirit, with what we desire, we'd live in a different world. There's one more quote, I'll leave you alone after this. Leo Tolstoy, he said this: everybody thinks of changing humanity, and nobody thinks of changing himself. So the point is, if we begin to purposefully live in such a way that I become that's how we become who we want to become. I'm going to have these certain habits. I'm going to have these routines so that hopefully in the end I will be a person who looks like Jesus. Now, normally I give practices at the end. I'll say, let's practice these things this week. I'm going to do the practices right here about in the middle. These are ways that we can help engage our bodies so that we can become the kind of people who are actually, in the end, our spirit is willing and our body is also willing to do it. It's strong enough to do what we want. That's how we want to function in life. We want to follow Jesus. So, let me give you a couple of practices. Number one, we can, let's see, I think I had fasting on here, but I don't see it in my notes. We'll just skip it. I'll mention it. Fast, we want to fast. Why do we fast? Who would choose to not eat? Well, we choose to not eat because what you do in those moments is you say, I have other things more important than food, which is following Jesus, saying yes to Him, saying no to these other things. And so if we fast, we get to the point where we say, I know I can go a couple of meals without eating, and so I also know I can say no to these things. Fasting teaches us what's most important in our life. Let me give you another one, another practice. Celebrate. Plan times of celebration. Celebrate on purpose. And the reason is when we practice celebration, what we do is we practice joy. Joy takes practice. Celebrations are intentional ways that we begin to live in such a way that we actually experience joy. If any of you would like to experience more joy, plan some celebrations. If you are a person who does not celebrate your birthday and you are cranky, it's because you have neglected opportunities to train yourself to practice joy. We should be celebrating. Celebrate at the end of the week. Celebrate getting through paying your bills. You paid your bills this week? Sounds like ice cream to me. We're going to practice celebrating. See, celebration teaches us to have joy. What can you do? Celebrate birthdays. Celebrate paying the bills. Celebrate not being sick for a month. Whatever it is to train yourself to experience joy. 2 more examples. Reflection. If you aren't taking time to reflect on what you've done or how you feel about it, we're missing moments where God can interact with us and say, hey, good job here. Could work on things here. Reflection teaches us to notice what we are doing, and then when we notice it, we can begin to adjust our behavior. There's an educator and philosopher, his name's John Dewey. He said, we don't learn from experience, we learn by reflecting on experience. See, if you're constantly angry, perhaps you can reflect on why you are angry. Is there something that continues to set you off? Is it you're not eating at the right time? My grandmother, she was the best. At 11:30, you could count on her being a little irritable. At 11:30, she had to eat. Maybe that's your problem. You just need to realize you have a schedule. And 11:30, you got to get some food in you. But why? What's going on? If you're angry, reflect on it. Why? What's God saying to you? Maybe God wants to say something about your anger. Or maybe there's a situation that God's trying to resolve or bring to your attention. And if you don't reflect on it, you're just going to keep being an angry person. One more practice, and that is exercise. Doing something with our bodies is important, and we all have different levels of exercise. But whatever it is you're able to do, we should do that. Our bodies are really important. I want to be around a long time so that I can make an impact on the world around me for generations to come. This means I need to live my life in such a way that I'm healthy enough to do something. I want to show you a picture of my grandpa. This is a picture of my grandpa. He's 90 years old in that picture. What he's doing, he's playing catch with his great-grandson, Andrew. 90 years old playing catch. Can you imagine playing catch with your great-grandson at the age of 90? I can. I want to be the kind of person who is able to be around long enough to teach generations of people about Jesus. This means I need to live in such a way that I'm going to last until I'm 90. I need to go to the doctor regularly. I need to eat healthy. That's a work in progress, by the way. I need to train. I need to do the most I can so that my body, I can do my part to last, so that when I'm 90 years old, I can be in the backyard with my kids playing catch with my great-grandson. That's the kind of people we want to be, is do whatever you can to exercise your body so that God can, because you're able to do what God's asking you to do at whatever age is appropriate for you. This takes time and effort, and hoping that over time the spirit and body will be both willing and able. It takes intention. Dallas Willard has a great quote. It's really dense, but it's really good, so I have it on the screen. Let's see if we can get through it here. He says this: full participation in the life of God's kingdom and in the vivid companionship of Christ comes to us only through appropriate exercise in the disciplines for life in the Spirit. Here's what he's saying. Living the abundant life of God, being full of joy and goodness and hope and beauty, all of that, being united with God, comes through appropriate actions, disciplines, training your body. Okay, this is what happens. And he says this: those disciplines alone can become for average Christians the conditions upon which the spiritual life is made indubitably real. When was the last time you read the word indubitably in a sentence, huh? I was reading that going, I haven't seen that word in a long time. Anyway, those disciplines alone can become for average Christians the conditions upon which the spiritual life is made indubitably real. It's true. And if this point can be made as convincingly as its truth and its importance deserves, the practical effects will be stunning. There will be a life-giving revolution in our personal lives and in our world. He's saying if we can figure out a way to align with our spirit and our body, if we can live in such a way that our spirit is willing and our flesh is strong enough to actually begin to do what God's called us to do, he says the effects will be stunning. It is a life-giving revolution for average Christians. I love that. I'm just an average Christian trying to follow Jesus, trying to do the best I can. I want to live that out. I want a life-giving revolution. And if that means, then I want to train my body to align it with the Spirit's. Okay, so we want to begin to put in practice some of these things to train myself to live in this way. So Jesus then, after he tells his disciples the Spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak, he says, watch and pray again, and then he leaves them and he goes away to pray. This is verse 39 through 41. And again he went away and prayed, saying the same words. And again he came and found them sleeping, for their eyes were very heavy, and they did not know what to answer him. He comes a second time, they're asleep again. He says, are you still sleeping? And they just look at him. They got nothing. There's no response. We'll get to that in a second. And he came a third time and said to them, are you still sleeping and taking your rest? It is enough. The hour has come. The Son of Man is betrayed into the hands of sinners. Are you still sleeping? Jesus returns a second time. He says, you're still sleeping? And I love that they just are, there's nothing they can say. Have you ever asked your kids a question, why did you do this? And they just know, I got nothing. I made a mistake. I am definitely wrong here. I've got no defense. I got nothing. That's where the disciples are on the second time. Jesus says, okay, watch and pray. He leaves and comes back a third time. And what I want us to notice that the disciples, this is point 3, is failure again. The disciples, the greatest disciples, these 3, the closest friends of Jesus, fail again and again and again. They just aren't able to live out what Jesus has asked them to do. They disobeyed. They were physically not able. They did not have the strength to do what they were asked. They fell asleep. And just like Jesus asked the disciples, I think, again, Mark asks the readers, are you still sleeping? I mentioned this earlier, but I hope that this causes us to consider again, how are we doing? We only have one life to live. And Jesus invites us to watch and pray. He invites us to live a life united with Him. Many of us haven't thought about it. We don't pay attention. We're just trying to pay the bills, wait and see, is it time for us to start the next show? Can we sit down and watch this together? We're just trying to get through life, and we're not watching and praying. We enjoy the benefits of this 21st century America, and we're asleep to what God is doing among us. And when temptation or trials come, we are unprepared. There's a better way to live, by watching and by praying. Now, here's what I love about this. We will make mistakes. We will say wrong things. We will sin. We're going to just mess it up, just like the disciples. But I don't want us to live in that part of failure, because Jesus' response is extraordinary. The tricky part, though, is it's not here. We have to read two more chapters and wait 3 days for his response. This is what happens. So Jesus, he says, it's time to go. He says, you're still sleeping. Okay, fine. Now's the time. He can hear in the background the soldiers are coming. It is now time for his arrest. His death and betrayal is now imminent. He says, get up, let's go. And so we're not told that Jesus speaks to the disciples again in the Gospel of Mark. That's it. No more interaction with his disciples. He's done. He's now going to go. Judas comes. He betrays Jesus. Jesus is arrested, and he's taken off. He's tried in court. He's beaten, put to death, put in a grave. In the middle of that, Peter denies Jesus 3 times. His disciples scatter and flee. They're gone. They're nowhere around. They all react poorly. That's what happens. So this is just again, failure. But I want us to notice Jesus' response here. On Sunday, something really interesting occurs. 3 ladies wake up early on Sunday morning to prepare Jesus' body for burial. He died on Friday, it's a Sabbath, so they hastily put him in the grave, and they just said, okay, we got to come back, we'll get his body ready after Sabbath. So they roll the stone away, put it in place, and they're going to come back. So Sunday morning, they're coming to get Jesus' body ready. When they get to the tomb, they are a little confused because the stone is rolled away, and there's a dude just sitting there. And they're really confused. So this is what happens in Mark 16:6, several days after Jesus and this interaction in the Garden of Gethsemane. It says this, and the man said to the ladies, do not be alarmed. You seek Jesus of Nazareth who was crucified. He has risen. He is not here. See the place where they have laid him? But go, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you. Jesus rose from the grave. He is alive and well. And he says to the ladies who just messed up, who failed, who weren't strong enough to do what Jesus told them to do. He says, hey, go tell the disciples and Peter. He's going to meet him in Galilee. He's going ahead of them. We expect Jesus to be mad, angry, disappointed. At his greatest time of need, they abandoned him. They betrayed him. They left him. We've talked years ago about Peter. Peter's betrayal arguably is worse than Judas's betrayal. What Peter did was just cold. And we expect Jesus to be angry and reject them and say, oh, they're going to reject me? Fine. But that's not what Jesus does. He does the opposite, which is our 4th point today, which is restoration. Jesus wanted to be with his disciples, even after they failed. Jesus wants to be with you, even after you fail. When we fail, when we fall, when we disobey God, when we think he is disappointed or angry, we think he's going to look down on us and be disappointed and discouraged and say, I knew it. This isn't the case at all. Jesus makes a plan to be with his disciples. He says, hey, tell him I'm going to go where I told him I'd meet him. I'm waiting for him. Jesus wants to be with them. I'm reminded of the time of when my children were learning to walk. You know those moments, and I picture it clearly with my oldest daughter, Annabelle. We were in the kitchen, and we'd be sitting there, and Katie would put her up, and I'd say, come on, Annabelle. And Annabelle, she'd start to walk, and what would happen? She would fall. She would fail. And what would I do? I'd say, Annabelle, you're the worst. How could you fall? What is wrong with you? I'm disappointed in you. I can't believe you did that. No, that's ridiculous. What did I do when she fell? I picked her up. I smiled, I hugged her, and I said, good try. Let's try it again. And we set her up, and then we tried it again. Because that's what they do. We're learning. I loved her. I wanted her to be with me. I wanted her to learn to walk. And the only way she's going to learn to walk is by falling. And I didn't reject her. I wasn't discouraged. I wasn't disappointed. I loved her. I said, nice try. Let's try it again. It's the same thing with Jesus and us. When we fall, when we fail, Jesus isn't saying, I knew it. I knew I should have never asked that person to do that. He says, nice try. Let's try it again. Come on. Let's try it again. I want to be with you. Let's go. Let's have another shot at this. Jesus wants to try again. He wants you to be with him. He wants you to try to be alert. He wants you to try to watch, to obey, to follow him. The disciples discovered Jesus' amazing grace. I think you will too. When you fall, when your spirit is willing but your flesh is weak, imagine Jesus picking you up and saying, nice try. Let's try it again. Let's try it again. He's going to be smiling at you. He's going to give you a hug and say, let's go. He wants to be with you. That is the entire point of him coming to earth, to bring us to a restored relationship. His name is called Emmanuel, God with us. He wants to be with us. Some of us may not believe that. We may have been told that we are worthless. We may have been told that we are failures. We may believe that we are never good enough. And yet here we have this sentence that says, tell his disciples and Peter that he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you. Jesus wants to be with you. He wants you to know him and to love him. He wants to know you and love you. You are his child, and he gave all that he had for you. When you are tempted to run away and hide, when you're tempted to fall asleep and feel like you've rejected, you haven't done enough, he is there to welcome you back. No matter what you think you've done, he will lovingly receive you. I just love that that's how he's a God of grace. He keeps drawing us back to him. He never rejects us. He keeps welcoming back to him. This morning, if you feel like you have done too much, you just don't know if you keep failing, I want you to notice that Jesus keeps going back to his disciples, and the same as with us. So we're invited to walk with him. We're invited to follow him. And even when we fall, which we will, he's right there. I'm so grateful that he is. Will you join me in prayer this morning? Jesus, thank you for your grace. Thank you that you never give up on us, even when we clearly fall and fail. You never say, okay, that's it, I'm done. You never wipe your hands of us and go on to somebody else. You keep giving us chances. You are a good and gracious God. So Lord, help us to see that today. Help us to feel your goodness. For those who believe they've done too much or they haven't, they're outside of your grace, Lord, help them to know that you love them. If somebody doesn't know you yet today, Lord, help them to invite you into their life this morning. We love you in your name. Amen. A couple discussion questions today. Tell us about a time you sensed God asking you to do something and you failed. We all have stories like that where we say, oh, I wish I would have done this and I failed. It's okay. Let's talk about those times. And then I want us to notice, well, what did we learn? Do we feel like we're failures? Is God still loving us? Tell us about a time you sensed God asking you to do something and you just didn't do it. Number 2, what are you going to do this week to practice training your body to integrate it with your spirit? What are you going to practice this week? I think I'm going to practice celebrating. That seems high on my list this week. Maybe some of you might be fasting or praying or something like that. But what are you going to do to begin to practice training your body to integrate it with your spirit? All right, well, let me give us a prayer of blessing as we go. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Intersection, go in peace. You are loved. Have a great week.